We let Atlassians choose where they want to work every single day. There's no office mandates. We have 12,000 plus employees spread across 13 countries and 14 time zones, and more than 40% of Atlassians live more than 2 hours away from one of our 13 offices. We have customers who've implemented those agents and have cut down support interactions and human interactions by 85%. And so we think about doing the same thing for our own internal IT help desk. I want to automate as much of that as possible so they can get on with their day and get on with their work. This is the biggest inflection point I can ever remember, and it's happening faster than any point in the past. The problems are very much the same, but the opportunity is the approach that we're taking and applying new models and new approaches to solve those problems better and faster and more creatively. I think there are great opportunities for everyone at this point, not just a younger me or my children, but all of us to think about how to become more data literate and how to use GenAI and some of the LLM capabilities today to solve problems that we all have had in a faster, more efficient manner.
Welcome to the New Automation Mindset, where AI, automation, and integration come together. I'm your host, Marcus Zern, and as Chief Strategy Officer and part of the founding executive team at Workato, it is my mission to find these top innovators in AI, automation, and integration and share their journeys with all of you. Today, my guest is Tal Saraf. He's the SVP and Head of IT Engineering at Atlassian. And so Tal's really interesting, really impressive background. And what's interesting is that combination of first 20 years of product experience, both at Microsoft and Amazon, and then another 7 years of IT and digital experience. And I was at Starbucks and Meta, and now obviously also at Atlassian. So Atlassian is also a very important Workato customer, just completed a very highly successful ERP transformation with Workato. So I think there's gonna be a lot to learn today with Tal. So let's dive right in, that kind of diverse background, the kind of product experience and IT digital experience. How has that shaped you as a modern IT leader?
Sure. Well, first, Marcus, thank you for having me on. It's really a pleasure to join you today, and I appreciate you taking the time. Look, when I think about the time across those various companies, it's been all about what's the best thing for the customer. And so in the early days, like the formative years of my experience, it was really around a wide set of customers, whether it was web or mobile or cloud and so on. And then ultimately, as you said, like a mobile ordering and gifting platform. And now it's kind of shifted from those external customers to, I'm going to call them, more internal customers, and thinking about this as like same fundamentals about what's the best experience for that customer, as well as approaching it from a way that we could potentially externalize and think about not just as using it at say Atlassian, but how do we take the same technology that we would build here and build it in a way that other people could build. So we'll I'm sure get into it, but we build on top of the Atlassian platform that anyone could do. And so whether you're one of the 300,000 plus Atlassian customers, folks like NASA, or Rivian, or Domino's, right? People who deliver pizza at an amazing pace using things like Jira and Confluence and now Loom. I think that methodology that we've learned from other places really apply to modern IT.
Mm-hmm. So it's really the customer. It's fascinating. So I recently had another guest, the CIO of Lenovo. Also like a really interesting story. With him was a little different. So he grew up as the CIO. He had a strategy consulting background from McKinsey, but then what happened was that he started also being the technical leader of their services organization. Lenovo is diversifying, is offering not just hardware, but also IT services. And he was coming up with these services and building them out and delivering them and so on. And he said, look, this was the customer is what he kind of highlighted. Also, he said, this is the first time I realized, oops, they actually, that other customer that we have, they can decide to work with someone else. The internal customers, they don't have a choice, right? But now he he felt that when he was delivering that service, he started taking the customer just like so much more serious. And I think that's important. I think I guess from you, it started the other way around. You always took the customer probably super seriously anyway. That's interesting. So look, the other thing that's interesting to me, there's a lot of talk when I go out there and talk to IT leaders about how do you run an IT organization. And the one thing that comes up is like, people talk about they used to run it like as a project organization, and they're transitioning to running it as a product organization. So for someone who was in a product org and then became an IT leader, like what do you think about that? Is that what you would do anyway, or like what's your take on that?
Well, part of why we transitioned into this corporate engineering like environment that we have here at Atlassian is to get away from that one and done kind of like build the project, release it, to think about the longer term, like what are the needs of the business, what are the needs back to the customer again, like the customer inside of our businesses, and take a holistic view around the data and planning. And I think of this as being a strategic partner, being involved with what are the business problems that our stakeholders, our customers are trying to solve for, and helping them do that with innovative products and technology. So to do that, you really have to deeply understand the problem and think about how you might solve that in a repeatable way that you couldn't just, buy an off-the-shelf product, right? Like we're going to choose areas to invest where we can bring a real differentiator, whether it's, pulling data out of Jira or pulling data out of Confluence, or using some of the AI features that we may talk about later around Confluence, right? Like taking some of those features and then like applying them back into this solution that we build for our customers. So yeah, I think of it as like both making our products better for internal customers, but then also making the products longer term better for all Atlassian customers. So kind of that customer zero, or Atlassian on Atlassian experience of being the best customer of our own technology.
And it seems like what's really at the core is that more long-term view, right? Like what's going to happen, as you said, you're not just doing a project that ends at some point and then you're done and you're moving to the next one. I think that project thinking probably lends itself to buying stuff off the shelf. I speculate. And in the old world, the IT leaders always would say like, well, there's a how to build and then how to run. It seems like the product view of the organization kind of does away with that and thinks of like, well, I have that capability, and then I'm thinking about it long term. Is that the way with the corporate engineering that you guys think about it?
It is. And also I think about kind of core versus context, right? So like where do we have either core skills, core data, core abilities that we want to improve versus, hey, anybody, like, I'm not, like you mentioned the ERP transformation. We're not going to build our own ERP solution, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, but to take a best of breed ERP, to take a best of breed solution on top of that, and then extend it, that obviously makes sense for our business, for our customers. But in general, I think about how do we provide support, both using our own products to support our products, but then also to support those customers. So like when I think about our internal use of JSM, we want to be an amazing customer of JSM, and we want to build an experience for those agents inside of our company who then support those external customers, so that we have customers, folks like FanDuel, who've implemented those agents and have cut down support interactions and human interactions by 85%. And so we think about doing the same thing for our own internal IT help desk. So when I think about that help desk, I want to automate as much of that as possible so that, that customer gets their answer to their question right away. They don't have to wait for a human being to say, hey, how do I do a password reset? Just go ahead and reset the password for them, right? Like automate as much of that as possible, as quickly as possible, so they can get on with their day and get on with their work.
Mm-hmm. And for the people who might use the wrong product, JSM is Jira Service Management, right? Correct?
That's right. Yes.
That's right.
Thank you for helping me with my acronyms.
And it actually leads me to my next question, right? Because so we're talking about Atlassian products. I mean, you're obviously using your own product. It's Atlassian at Atlassian. We do the same thing. I mean, our IT organization is all about Workato at Workato. We used to work like very closely with Slack. Stephen Franchetti there, he was running Slack at Slack. Tell us a little bit how that worked. So you mentioned Jira service management, one thing that you use, obviously at Atlassian, that makes a lot of sense. Anything else? Any examples how you guys leverage your own product at Atlassian? And, the obvious question in 2024 is GenAI part of that? What are you guys doing there?
It definitely, GenAI definitely is part of that, and we're a very, very early customer of Atlassian Intelligence and the Rovo agents. So we built an experience for our performance management system that we call Elevate, and that uses the Confluence editor. So we use the same summarization capabilities of Atlassian Intelligence to take, let's say, peer feedback or employee feedback and anonymize it. In the old days, I used to read all that feedback myself and then try to say like, oh, let me take out the words that make it obvious that Marcus wrote this, and I'll anonymize it. Well, Atlassian Intelligence kind of summarizes all that for me and does it for me automatically, and I can just put it back into that review. And we've similarly building out Rovo agents that, again, could interact with Jira Service Management to answer questions or reduce the effort associated with the different types of questions someone might ask. So is this a legal question? Is this an HR question? Is this a financial question? Is this a travel and expense question? So like literally we helped folks in our finance team build a Rovo agent for travel and expense so that they take those common questions that they were answering around, can I expense this? How much can I expense for that? Just automate that away and automate away the repetitive work to help people get their work done faster.
Mm-hmm. And I feel this is probably also what the future of IT probably looks like, right? I mean, I think in the past, people have just purchased off the shelf applications for so many use cases and organizational things. I mean, HR and what you mentioned here with Confluence. I mean, you guys have a great knowledge management tool, and when there's HR knowledge management to be addressed, why wouldn't you? You probably wouldn't build your own core HR system, or as you mentioned, like core finance system, but those kind of, when it comes to like service management and knowledge management and so on, of course, I mean, it kind of totally makes sense that you would expand that with your own product, and also probably show prospects and customers what they can do also as well. Makes total sense. So let's talk about some. We're very proud to have you guys as a customer of Workato. And there was like recently, you guys went through a finance transformation. Again, finance is that kind of thing where nobody would build that themselves. But tell us a little bit, what that finance transformation was about, and maybe also how you guys look at a tool like Workato as part of that.
Sure. So as you point out, no, this is not something that I would endeavor to build on my own. It doesn't make sense. There's a handful of companies that make sense to do that, and we are not one of them. And so, yes, we went to a best of breed, and we went from a system that was as a fast-growing company with over 12,000 employees, and given our revenues, like it made sense to in all the countries that we have offices in, it made sense to try to move to a more modern offering. And so that was a replacement project that we did in under 9 months. And so, I remember going to the board, it was almost a year ago, and they were asking about it. And they're like, that's really fast. Are you sure you're going to be able to do it this quickly? And it was a cooperative effort with the finance organization to make sure that we did this in a staged way, in a logical way. And part of that was actually around automation that you alluded to with Workato. So, there were something like 46 different financial systems that we had to integrate in this process. And some of that was about how would we both integrate seamlessly so that simplify that automation across that experience, and then also start getting insights around transaction monitoring, resolving issues, so that like our close, right? The goal of this was not just move over, but to have the month end close, quarter end close, year end close be as fast or faster and as accurate or more accurate than in the old system. And the takeaway was we were able to actually automate away a lot of the manual effort that the FP&A team otherwise was doing manually. So it started as reducing back to that manual effort and improving the accuracy and streamlining the operation. So we were able to get all those things done. And yeah, it's been a very successful project. So, happy to have worked with you all in the automations process of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I mean, this is where kind of like, Workato is kind of what we really set out to do, was to take something that's actually technically quite challenging, integration, right, and automation, because it touches so many different systems. So, I mean, it really inherently is at this complexity intersection, if you want, but then try to remove as much complexity as possible. Stay very enterprise grade and be able to, that still has to very reliably and securely and scalably function, but remove complexity. It seems to me, if I hear that, I mean, the way you describe it, right? I mean, when we talked the other day, it was about, do I buy or do I build, right? And I think there is a trend out there to kind of look at it. It used to be, I think, maybe the last decade almost was a little bit that people just bought. There's all these new SaaS applications, and then you bought, and you ended up with, a little bit of a mess. And then sometimes you want to pull back and maybe say like, well, wait a second, did I need application number 45, right? Or could I maybe take application number 9 and expand it a little bit or customize it a little bit? And sometimes it's also like, well, wait a second, so maybe I get value from taking applications 3, 17, and 28 and actually tie them together in a way and bring out that overarching business process that you can automate, like in FP&A and so on. And it feels to me like we have to be, as IT leaders, a little more open to kind of looking at that entire portfolio of what we have, and not just buy, but also kind of think about what we make with what we have, and maybe polish and glue together and so on. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely resonates. And I think, I certainly came into this organization and was surprised by how much was being bought off the shelf in areas where sometimes it wasn't answering the business questions at the core of what we were trying to do. So I'll give you an example. We built a solution called Radar, and that is really a workforce planning platform. So it takes information out of Jira. So if you think about it, at the end of the day, what does Jira give you? It tells you what's happening with a particular project, like a task, and Atlas tells you about the status of that project. Well, if I can connect the people to the project, to the status of the thing, now I can start understanding and thinking through, like, what is my allocation across the company to my company priorities? How do I make informed decisions around investments? Many of us, as you said, we're living in this GenAI world now and saying like, well, wait, how do I find or get more resources to go after some of the projects that we've not been able to do before? Well, the answer can often be, let's evaluate, are we doing the most important work, and move those resources around to the priorities of the business. And honestly, an off-the-shelf solution was not going to do that for me, right? So, we had the same HR platform, that core HR platform here that I had before and several other places. And so perfectly good system of record, but it doesn't provide the insights. It doesn't provide the visibility into decision making. And so we were able to build it here in just 9 months. And that was much faster than I built it the last go round. And it was because we were building on top of that Atlassian platform again. So there was a speed to development and a speed to make the right decisions and have the right mindset of how do we approach solving for the business challenges that we have as a company and as an industry, frankly. So I think there's a great opportunity for IT leaders to think about how do we each balance our resources to go after the absolute top priorities for our companies? And how do we do that in a time where, look, everyone always wants to get more done. And so sometimes it's about prioritization and being able to connect. Hey, if you have OKRs and you have projects and you have status of projects, well, who are the people and who are the people that you have working on those things? And, do you need to think about shifting some of those people around? So yeah, that's how we've thought about it. And I think it's been a very important skill set and technology that we've added to our own internal portfolio.
It seems to me like you're already answering my next question, which is a good sign. But I want to bring it up explicitly. We wrote this book, The New Automation Mindset, and really the framework that we looked at it and how, like, what we thought, like, a modern IT leader should really think about is the process mindset, kind of thinking beyond just one single application at the larger end-to-end process, which I think that work planning project or product that you build there, it does. It has an dimension of that, bringing project management and HR and so on together, right? We talked about the growth mindset, which really says, like, okay, well, don't just take the business processes as they are today, but maybe with data, maybe with like GenAI, maybe with other digital things, you can actually change that process. Maybe you can actually leave out some steps or like move it around a little bit, actually make it better. So the process mindset, growth mindset, and then the last but not least, we talked about the scale mindset, which is really so a little bit between this like IT and operations and the business, also that interface and the customer that we talked about is like, the more we can get intertwined, the more people we can get involved in that the exercise, probably the more value we gonna generate. Just curious, how does that resonate? Does that seem right? I mean, there may be some additions. I'm just curious to hear from someone who practices all of this. Like, how does that feel?
No, it absolutely that feels accurate, 100%. And I think about how do we regardless of what company you are in, we're all limited by how much great talent we can apply to particular problem spaces. And so thinking about not just, from a silo mentality of like, hey, I have these people assigned to this project and to this effort, but thinking across those company priorities, across those departments, and thinking like, okay, given the priorities of the company, given the priorities of the business, how might I shift things around, not just in a run the business kind of way, the way we always have, but have the thought about the investment and where can we shift investments? Where can we, to your point, get more efficient in how we go after these opportunities? And maybe think about cutting down the number of steps, cutting down the amount of work that we do in areas that may or may not make sense anymore, or like may have open positions that we can shift open positions around, right? As the needs of the business have emerged and the priorities have changed. So I do think that's a very, very important capability, and one that that scale mindset you talked about is critical for the success of businesses today.
Let's deep dive into this or double click into this a little bit. So because I meet more traditional IT organizations also. I would say like IT organizations that probably suffered a little bit from that just buy mentality of the past, and that build and run kind of distinction, and they end up with an organization where all the employees, all the IT resources seem to be in silos. They seem to be around applications, but there's very few people that actually maybe know, even in some cases, even none at all, know people that look across. And so in your performance or like work planning example, if you think about this as in an organization that works that way, there's almost like no one who's responsible for this, no one who look at this, because you only got people in the HR silo and then you have people in the project management silo, but nobody even would think about combining the two, if that makes sense. I don't know if you ever encountered that, or if that's it seems like what you guys build with the corporate engineering is an organization that's not afraid to actually look across.
Absolutely. I mean, we are not afraid to look across, and I think that that is, that is an important skill set that modern leaders need to think about, right? Because when I got here, it was pretty clear to our founders what got us here isn't going to get us to the next level, right, of where we want to grow and be as a company. And so, and again, I would say back to the products and solving customer problems, like our customers have such diverse problem spaces. Like I think about us going after FedRAMP moderate and saying like, hey, we want a new set of regulated industries, a new set of customers that we want to build products for. Or like you said, GenAI before, like we were pretty early in investing in GenAI inside of Confluence and are doing that inside of Jira and other places. So yes, like we need to be smart about where we put those investments and how we solve those customer problems, not just the way it's always been in that narrow silo, the way you said, Marcus, but literally, okay, how do I connect this data that flows through in this process across those various silos? So yes, I think that approach is incredibly important.
So Tal, we talked about your background, and how your product experience really is valuable for that IT decision between being a project organization or product organization. Obviously now you're at Atlassian. Atlassian is all about teams, supporting teams, no matter where they are, also if they're distributed, right? I mean, team anywhere is one of your slogans on your website also. So I'd be remiss to not address one specific topic I see actually discussed quite a bit among IT leaders today, which is around, should I organize IT centrally, for efficiency, for, having big control across everything for that single instance, or should I be more federated, be closer to the business, involve more people, and kind of that kind of conundrum between, what's the best organization for IT? I'm just curious, what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first, maybe to put the Team Anywhere piece into context for people who are not aware. So, yes, we do. We don't have we let Atlassians choose where they want to work every single day. There's no office mandates. We have 12,000 plus employees spread across 13 countries and 14 time zones. And more than 40% of Atlassians live more than 2 hours away from one of our 13 offices. So, yeah, our HR department works closely in the onboarding, and we work with distributing technology and opening new offices. So we're very involved with all of those things. But beyond the physical federated, if you will, or geographically federated mode that we're in, distributed mode that we're in, I would say our technology allows us to be either federated or distributed, right? Either one absolutely is great from a software stack perspective. And that's how we think about it. So I might put it in the context of Jira, right, for a minute and just say, hey, I might have a specific Jira instance for the people team, the HR team. I may have a different one for the legal team, right, who might then interact with contracts, like in other, law firms or customers, lawyers who are looking at contractual negotiations or what have you. Same for FP&A, right, where they may have a different set of system with suppliers and so who has access to those systems? You might choose to have that distributed, or like you said, it could be just a federated where like we want one front door. And so if I'm inside the company, I want to provide one mechanism, regardless of which of those Jira instances I interact with. I want to create one front door where I can create the ticket in the right, say, Jira instance to answer the question. So that's one way I think about it. The other is honestly, like from a customer point of view, keep bringing up customers, but departments can make decisions and choose to trial up one of our products with a credit card or a free offer. And they can choose at the departmental level, or like you said, our products also work very, very well at a federated company-wide level, right? Where, you want all the tickets to be the same, or you want all the pages to flow through Confluence, or you want a Rovo agent to search across all of those. So yes, I think all of those models make a ton of sense to me. We have skated between those two ends of the spectrum inside our own teams, and we do that with customers all day long. So I think it depends on what the right structure is for a particular customer, and again, like maybe the problems that they're trying to solve for. So that's how I think about it. But yes, it definitely, your point resonates wholeheartedly with me.
Mm. Well, it seems like you guys at Atlassian provide flexibility to IT organizations, and then at the end, it kind of depends on the business, on the customer, what they exactly need, and it's okay to go either way. Maybe even combine, be hybrid in a way. Okay, all right. No, that makes definite sense. Listen, I have one more question, and this might be the most interesting of all, to be honest. You obviously have a long career. You worked in different areas. You've worked in great companies, to be honest. Let's think about young people out there who maybe aspire to be an IT leader one day, don't have that experience yet. Let's say they plan out 10 years. What would be your advice? Like, what should they focus on? Maybe what should they not focus on? How should, if you talk to your younger self or, your son or daughter or whatever it might be, and give them advice to spend the next 10 years for preparing, like what would you say? What's good advice?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I actually would say the same thing. The same advice I give my own children. I do have a son and daughter. I have a daughter who was resistant to this notion of studying data, and she has different kind of aspirations, but she took a data science class in high school, and turns out she was good at it. She found it difficult at first. She would tell you, she wrote an essay that I said no coding was involved. I don't ever remember having said that, but it made for a great essay. But now she's actually has a dual major, working on a dual major in data science. And so one, I would say, like, be data. You don't have to be a data scientist like my daughter, but be data literate. Like, understand, what does that chart mean? What point are you trying to make with the data? What can you infer from the data that you're looking at? So, we do this ourselves. Like, think about the number of tickets on pages or topics, or, 50% of all Atlassians hit a problem. That makes it real for us and for them. So it allows us to prioritize our work and improve our products. So one, definitely be data literate. Look, I think the other one, and this is more my son than my daughter, but like, my son is literally a bit younger, but he's already working on his AI skills. Like, we got him self-hosting on his in his computer, and he's ironically was talking about like wanting to get more graphics cards because he wants to run larger and larger models. So, this is the biggest inflection point, honestly, of my lifetime. So I've been fortunate enough to live through I guess I'll date myself, 16-bit to 32-bit, character-based to graphical user interface, the shift to the internet, mobile, cloud, AI. I mean, like, and even though I worked on speech and some early versions of speech recognition, this is the biggest inflection point I can ever remember, and it's happening faster than any point in the past. And so I would say, like, the problems are very much the same, but the opportunity is how the approach that we're taking and applying new models and new approaches to solve those problems better and faster and more creatively, and frankly, automate away a bunch of the cruft, a bunch of the undifferentiated heavy lifting, as some might say, that we used to do the long way before. And whether that's in using data science techniques or AI techniques, I think there are great opportunities for everyone at this point, not just a younger me or my children, but all of us, to think about how to become more data literate and how to use GenAI and some of the LLM capabilities today to solve problems that we all have had in a faster, more efficient manner, and use things like automation, like Workato, to drive automation. So I think it's a very exciting time for this industry, and I'm so happy to have had a chance to chat with you about it today, Marcus.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's actually fascinating. I mean, first of all, it seems like our children, there's quite a bit of similarity. My daughter, I will remember that so vividly. She's now 19 and she is in a mathematically oriented econ class at university in college. I'm very proud to say that I think she's officially smarter than me. I studied double E, so I did my share of math, but what she does now is beyond what I can do. And so I think the data and the math and the data literacy, I think no matter what GenAI will do, I think that is a superpower, and it's for everyone. My son is actually, interestingly enough, not as math-centric, but he did, maybe it's the age, he's also younger. He leaned in like very strongly into GenAI, maybe to the despair of his teachers and so on, for things that maybe he shouldn't have used it. But I think he experienced GenAI as I have. I use it for, if there's a new role and I write a job description, I would go to ChatGPT first. There's no question about it. And it's actually, I would always revise it and tweak it, but what it gets me immediately is just unbelievable. So I think those two things, and I think they're probably related, the GenAI and the data. I think it's probably hard to do one without the other also a little bit, but that sounds, yeah, I think I would agree. I would agree. So that's fascinating. Hey, Tal, I want to say thank you for spending time with us. I'm sure we could have gone on here and talked more and more, but I really believe the audience got some interesting nuggets here out of this. And thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing here in modern IT and pushing things forward and sharing your expertise. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marcus. Really appreciate the time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Please make sure to rate today's episode, leave us a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the show so you will never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.